Hello everybody, thank you for joining in this Photoshop CS6 tutorial today. We're going to go over the curves adjustment today. It is one of the best color correction adjustments there and is a lot of people's go-to color correction adjustment. So usually they start out with that. So let's go ahead and get right into it and open it up. Let's go to Image, Adjustments, and then Curves. The hotkey is Control M. I'll just cancel this real quick and bring it up. You can see that Control M is the hotkey. So what can curves do for you, you might ask? Well, you can lighten up your brights, you can lighten up your darks, you can darken both, you can shift colors, you can add contrast, and you can create like some special effects such as solarization. So there are a bunch of different things that you can do with the curves adjustment. Now let's go over what we see here. The first thing that you'll notice is that we have our graph here, and let me explain the graph a little bit. So down here at the bottom we have our input. This is the very bottom, and over here on the left we have our output. Now what we got here is the blackest black, so 0 for black, is going to be at the very bottom left corner here. Now if we go all the way to the top right, we're going to have our brightest white, which would be 255 and I'm talking in RGB. So this is the brightest white and this is the blackest black here. And then of course we got anything on our grayscale value from here to there in between. Now you can click on this line here, which is the midline, and you can adjust the values in the area that you clicked and made the point from. So if I make a point up here, just click, it's going to create a point on the line, and then you can drag it. If I drag it up, it's going to brighten up the brights because it's up here in the top where the brights are. If I drag it down, it's going to darken the brights. Now if I make another point down here and drag it up, it's going to lighten the darks and darken the darks if I bring it down here more. So you can see how this is like creating some contrast and things. So that's how that works. Now if you move your point around and you're like, ah man, I didn't really want that there, you can create another point and just bring it back up to where you wanted it. Now you may have to do some adjusting with your points here to get the right thing, but overall you can just move your points around. Now one of the best ways to get good points and some good contrast and all that stuff in your image is to create what they call an S-curve. Now that is making your curve look like an S pretty much. Now you can go the opposite way if you would like. I could bring this one down and bring this one up. This creates like a kind of like a more blown out effect, and then if I go the other way, it's going to create a more of a contrasty effect, as you can see there. So that's the starting point you want to use for your curves, and then adjust them as you go on. Now I'm going to take off some of these points by clicking on the point and dragging it off. And if I do that, I get my straight line again, and now I'm back to normal. Or you could come down here to click on default and it'll bring that back. So let me just create something, click on default, it's going to bring it back to where it was. Now we do have a set of presets in here that we can use. And you can see there are a few different ones for RGB here. So if I click on color negative, it's going to create like a negative effect. So like if you're looking at a piece of film that hasn't been yet developed, so that's what that did. We've got darker here, increased contrast, and remember how I was talking about the S-curve, so the contrast is increased. And then if we want like a strong contrast, you can see the different things going on there. So I can go to default, and then as it just like the other adjustments, you can create your own presets by clicking on this and saving your preset. So if I wanted to make like something like this where it's really dark, save preset, and just type in whatever your preset is supposed to be, and you want it to be under the curves. I'm not going to save this one because I just made it off the top of my head. There's no reason to save it. And I'll just go back to default so I can go right back to where I was supposed to be. Now you can change your different color channels as well. So you can only take out a certain color if you wanted to. So if I wanted to take out some of the greens in this, up here, it makes the image more red, or I can brighten up and add more greens. So going down starts taking them away, and going up starts adding them. Let me go back to default. Alright, now we are gonna go move on to another cool thing that I like in the curves, where you can pick from your values using this finger thing right here. So come to this icon and click on it. Now we can go, and there's a finger dropper here, and if you look at the graph, you can see that there's a little circle on the tone line. So that's where the certain tones are in the image. Now if I wanted to just start like adjusting like these yellows, I can click and it creates a point for me, and now I can start adjusting these yellows if I wanted to. And I can start bringing back some of the other things that I was messing with. So now just pretty much the yellows are getting adjusted. So if I bring these down like this, now I've got an area that is yellow that I can mess with those. You can see now the yellows are getting a lot more blown out, or I can start coming down here to take out some of the yellow. And you can see now the yellows are going a lot more gray. But that's what's handy about this little tool here. I think it's pretty cool. Now I'm going to go back to default and just click off that tool so that you don't have it there, or so you aren't like using the tool to pick from your values. Now you can see that there's no circle appearing on our graph because I don't have it selected anymore. A quick way that you can get some color correction using curves, and if you're strapped for time, you can click on this auto button, and what it's going to do is it's going to create an S-curve based off of your image here, and it's going to try to make it a little more contrasty and everything for you. That way you don't have to put in a lot of time. It creates these points for you on Photoshop's like best guess there. So that's nice, and then you can always adjust these points however you want to. So let's go ahead and bring it back to the default, and I wanted to show you about these sliders here down here at the input. These will adjust the tonal values, so if I click and start dragging these, you can see how they're adjusting the tonal values in the image. Right now we're getting like a more of a solarization effect, and this way we'll start darkening things up. You can do the same thing by just dragging your point on your image here, and you can just mess around with it any way you want. Now you can also go the other way, going up and down by dragging the point, and same thing on this point, you can drag it down to do basically the same thing, but most people just go from left to right. They get better results doing it that way. If you are pretty good with drawing or something like that, then you can use this pencil right here. If you click on the pencil, you can draw your own S-curve or whatever kind of curve you're looking for. So if I start moving my line here, and I know this is going to look awful because I'm not the greatest at drawing. It wasn't too bad, but you can draw your own curve there. And if you like that, you have a lot of control over it this way, but it's not always if you don't have a steady hand or something like that. You can see where I went up and down right here. It can come out like disastrous, so it's up to you. If you think you can handle using the pencil here, then go for it. I mean, I'm not very good at it, so I always use the actual point curves. Now these buttons down here underneath where it says curve display options, they can be hidden by clicking on this double arrow, or shown by the same way. Now all these things do is change the look of your graph. So if I did pigment slash ink percentage, basically just flips it over. So it just changes the look. If I click on this graph, you get some more squares that you can use, and then you can change out, like if you want to see a histogram, the baseline, or anything like that. So that's just some options of how to display your actual graph. Nothing that really affects the actual image. So just remember that. You can hide those if you don't even care about showing them. And the last thing that we can go over here is the eyedroppers here. Same thing as in levels and some of the other adjustments. You can sample an image and set the black points, and you can see that it changes how the image looks. If I click on show clipping here, it's going to show me the parts of the image where it has been clipped off, and you can see that the RGB values have been changed in this ever since I used that eyedropper. I'm going to go back to default, but use these to get different types of looks depending on what you want to look at. You can see that the blue and the red and the green have been cut off way over here when I have clicked on and set my white point over here, because this wasn't obviously like a pure white, so it cut it off. It's more of like a grayish white, so that's why it did that. So if we click on the options here, we've got a couple auto color correction options. So when I click on the auto button here, it's going to change based on these options that I click on, and you can click on them to see how stuff is going to change. So if you like it this way, when you click on your auto, it's gonna look like that. Here's per channel. So just preview it here, and then you can mess with the different modes and target colors and everything like that. So if you want your shadows to be something else, like reds or something like that, so that's how you mess with those. They're just for different kinds of looks. So the default is enhanced brightness and contrast, and that's usually the best one to keep it on, and it looks the best, but it's up to you. So that's all there is to talk about curves. So hopefully I threw a lot of information at you guys, and hopefully it was useful. I'd like to thank you guys for watching this one, and be sure to visit the forums here. And if you guys would like to, I'd like to see some of your progress here, and if you post some of your before and after color correction using your levels adjustments, using your curves and your brightness and contrasts, or what else did we go over? Exposure. It would be awesome to see some of your before and afters. And all you got to do is come to buckysroom.org/forum, and then come down here into the Photoshop section, and just post in here your before and after color correction images, and then I'll try to comment on them if you would like, or just showing off your work and showing how and getting some positive feedback or anything like that. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you guys participate, and have a good one, everyone. See you guys later.